Shalom, giving all praise to Yahweh, Shem El Shai, Shem Kadash. Shalom to the 144,000 and the rest of the elect out there. Shalom to all. And I'm going to entitle this video, this is going to be a quick video. And the title of the video is More Proof that the Israelites were, that the Spartans were Israelites. We all saw the movie 300. The 300 Spartans all had these long, bushy beards, which shows you that the maker, the director, the producers of the movie knew that this ancient Sparta, a warrior clan, warrior nation, you can say, that they were Jake, but they got all Edomite-looking actors. But they made sure the beards was long and bushy. So anyway, we are all familiar with First Maccabees chapter 12. It goes into how the Israelites had communed with the Sparta, or the actual word in the scriptures is Lacedaemonians, which translate into the word Sparta. Even if you just go to Google, certain Bible encyclopedias, when you look up the word Lacedaemonians, also known as Sparta. So we're all familiar with First Maccabees 12. You can start from the first verse. I think it's the starting point is around the fifth, sixth verse. I'm not going to go into it. But I came across this here, which is Second Maccabees 5 verse 9. But I went into the context, so it start from the 6th verse, and we're going to read to the 12th verse, showing you that we were actually relatives, blood relatives to the people of Sparta, or the Lacedaemonians. So I'm going to read this, then I'm going to close. It says, 2 Maccabees 5 verse 6. It said, but Jason, now it speaks about Jason, that wretch, know about Jason in the Apocrypha, slew his own citizens without mercy, not considering that to get the day of them of his own nation would be a most unhappy day for him. But thinking they had been his enemies and not his countrymen whom he conquered, Jason came against his own people. Howbeit, and that happened in Israel. You had people that sold out against their own people. It said, howbeit, for all this he obtained not the principality, high seat, but at the least received shame for the reward of his treason, and fled again into the country of the Ammonites. In the end thereof he had an unhappy return, being accused before Aretas, the king of the Arabians, fleeing from city to city, pursued of all men, hated as of a forsaker of the laws. You get that nigga, he don't keep the laws. And by the way, Jason, that wretch, Jason is a Greek name. And being had, and remember, back during the time of the Maccabees, Alexander the Greek and the Maccabees, Antiochus Epiphanes, the Seleucus dynasty, you had a lot of our people in that region that couldn't speak a word of Hebrew, or they knew very little Hebrew, but they spoke fluent Greek, and they followed the customs of the Greek. Even the ones that knew that they were Israelites, they accepted certain customs of the Greeks, or they became Hellenized. So this is the history here. And see, when you get into this history in the Josephus and the Apocrypha, you know, during the time period of the Maccabees, the Alexander the Greek, then you understand when you go into the New Testament and it mentions the word heathens, Gentiles, foreigners, Grecians, Greeks, Hellenistas, and Hellenin, which is Grecians and Greeks. You said you had some of our people that spoke Greek, couldn't speak Hebrew, but they knew that they were Israelites. But they had, you know, certain customs that they took from the Greeks, but they knew that they were Israelites. They worshiped the Most High. Just like us now, we have certain customs. We eat certain foods that we're familiar with in America. You know, you get into the Super Bowl. Most of y'all got into the Super Bowl. Well, that's really a Greek custom. Renewed, you know? That whole sporting arena thing. So we all have that worldliness in us to a certain extent. Then you had other Israelites that didn't know that they were Israelites, and they were full-on black Greeks. So let me continue to read. So now this is why you're gonna have a hard time with these Christians, because they're gonna say, well, wait a minute, Cornelius was a Gentile. Wait a minute, not only the Jews also, but also the Greeks. Remember Galatians 3, what is that, 28 and 29, or the 29th verse? What about the Apostle Paul? He said he was an apostle of the Gentiles, therefore the Most High magnified his office. So Paul went to the Gentiles, which were other nations. Well, if you don't know this history, that's what you're going to think. There's a reason why I said, I'm going to say it again, I said it a couple of minutes ago, there's a reason why they were labeled, even the Israelites, when you go into the circumcised compared to the uncircumcised, the circumcised were the Israelites that were born in the land, in Palestine, and was circumcised on the 8th day, grew up under the laws. At 12 years old, they became a man. They were dealing with Israelites that were, in fact, Israelites based on their genealogy, or based on their race, let's say, but they had different customs. So Jake looked down on them. Look, you really ain't even Israelite. Even though your line goes back to us, you really ain't an Israelite. They do that like in Jamaica. You go to Jamaica, you in America, you leave from Jamaica, you born in Jamaica, you go to America, you have kids, you bring them back. They don't accept them. They say they call you foreigner, which is a stranger, because you're not a real Jamaican. The Puerto Ricans, right? If you're born in New York, they don't even call you a real Puerto Rican. You're not a real Puerto Rican. You're a New Yorican. So anyway, it says, fleeing from city to city. So that's why when you explain it to Christians about the history, that goes over their head, because they don't study the history. Study to show thyself approved. Pursued of all men. He had nations trying to kill his ass, and he had Israelites trying to kill his ass. Hatred as a forsaker of the laws, and being had in abomination as an open enemy of his country, or of his countrymen. So not only was the nation wanted a piece of his ass, Israel wanted a piece of his ass. Just like Alexander Tiberius was like Tiberius. Damn, I always get his name. There's 3 names: Tiberius, Julius, Tiberius, Alexander. However you want to put them names together. He was raised up as a he was raised up among the Jews of Alexandria, Egypt. So he was circumcised. He was raised up in the Israelite family, but he wasn't born in Israel. He was probably born in Egypt, Alexandria, Egypt. So he knew he was an Israelite, but he said, nah, I don't want to be an Israelite. I know I'm an Israelite, but I want to be a soldier. I want to be a Greco-Roman. So he's no different than Jason. And you had a lot of people that showed loyalty to the Caesars, and a lot of them had high up positions. Just like today. I'm sorry. And country and countrymen, he was cast out into Egypt. Thus he that had driven many out of their country, Jason did, perished in a strange land. What land did he perish in? Egypt. It said he was cast out into Egypt. Retiring to the Lacedaemonians and thinking there to find succor, which means help, somebody to finance you, to get you on your feet. You know, you have situations where you got a guy that come out of the joint, you know, he did a bid, then he come around his people, and then he's looking for succor. He's like, look, give me 500, give me 1,000 to get on my feet. So the dude said, well, I give you 5 G's, but you got to work for me. You got to work, but you're going to build up. He might become a drug dealer, something like that. Well, they did that back then, just like they do that today. Let me get back on my feet. That's even in the law. If you find your brother in decay, you're supposed to restore that man. Hey, Joe Frazier did it to Ali. When they stripped his license, Joe Frazier wanted to have that fight with Ali, and Ali was down on his money, and I believe Joe Frazier gave him 5,000. Now 5,000 back in the early 70s is pretty much like fucking $50,000 today. I mean, somebody give you $5,000, that's a lot of money, but it was more like, when you adjust for inflation, it was more like 50,000. So Ali was able to do things with that 50,000 because Joe did it so for them to have a fight and they can make millions. So that's in our spirit. All right? It says succor by reason of his kindred. Kindred means family, my kinfolk. So he knew that the Lacedaemonians were actually Israelites. And he that had cast out many unburied had none to mourn for him. They said, fuck that nigga. All the wickedness that nigga did, nor any, and that goes for you guys that are spies in the different camps. You infiltrators among Jake. You know that if you don't know that you're a Jake, you come into this, you join a camp, you learn that you're a Jake. And in your spirit, you like, yo, this shit makes sense. I'm beginning to believe I am a Jake. But you fight that feeling because you're an infiltrator. So the Most High got a special place in hell for you. As Bishop Nathaniel. Nor any solemn funeral. They didn't say, man, don't fucking fuck that nigga. Don't even put him in a sepulcher, man. Because in Israel, when you died, whether you were wicked or whether you were righteous, whatever your name was, whatever family you came from, you were buried. The scriptures say, and he was buried with his fathers. Even though Saul went off, Saul was buried with his fathers. Solomon went off, Solomon was buried with his fathers. Solemn funeral at all. They didn't give him no respect for his death. Nor sepulcher, which is where Yahushua was buried in. It was a cave in the rock that covered it, and you put the dead. So we were buried above ground. See these small hats, these JJs, they don't get buried underground. If they're part of a traditional so-called Jewish family, they bury them in a mausoleum. They're above ground with his. They said, nor any solemn funeral at all, nor sepulchre with his fathers. Now, when this that was done came to the king's car, he thought that Judea had revolted, whereupon, removing out of Egypt in a furious mind, he took the city by force of arms and commanded his men of war. Right, your personal army was your men of war. The Herodian dynasty had their own men of war, which were their private army. Remember when they were beaten, they were buffeting the Messiah. It wasn't the Romans that did that. The Romans came in after. The ones that beat them down, those were Herod's, the Herodian dynasty personal army. When 70 A.D. took place, you had the Israelites fighting against the Romans and Herod's men of war, Herod's personal army. And like I said, you do the research, they were actually Edomites fighting on the side of Jake because they wanted to get in the kingdom, and they're not going to get in the kingdom. It says, and commanded his men of war not to spare such as they met, and to slay. There's a term called extreme prejudice. Don't make no pact with that person. Just kill him. And to slay such as went up upon the houses. So they saw an opportunity to get at Jake. So anyway, with that, I said I was going to make this relatively short. With that, I'm going to say shalom.